What if I told you that you, yes, you, might be capable of unspeakable acts? Intrigued? Disturbed? Good. Because we're about to unravel a mystery that spans from the ashes of World War I to a small room at Yale University, where ordinary people made extraordinary and terrifying choices. Picture this, it's 1919, and Germany is reeling. The Treaty of Versailles has just been signed, and boy, did it pack a punch. How bad was it? Imagine losing your smartphone, your car, and your savings account all in one day. Now, multiply that by about 1 million. That's what Germany faced. Let's break it down. Germany lost 10% of its territory. That's like Texas suddenly becoming part of Mexico. Their once mighty military slashed from 3.87 million to a paltry 100,000. It's as if the New York Yankees were suddenly told they could only field a little league team. But wait, there's more. Germany had to pay 132 billion marks in reparations. To put that in perspective, it's like being told to pay off the US national debt with your allowance. Ouch! Fast forward to the 1930s. Enter a mustachioed man named Adolf Hitler. He and his Nazi pals had a wild theory: all our problems? Blame the Jews. The Nazis played the nationalism card like a Vegas poker pro with a stacked deck. Make Germany great again, they cried. Before you could say schnitzel, they were in power, and things got dark faster than a solar eclipse. Now, here's where it gets truly chilling. The Nazis didn't just discriminate, they decided to systematically eliminate an entire group of people. They called it the final solution. It started with isolation, then deportation, and finally, extermination. In places like the Warsaw Ghetto, millions were crammed into tiny areas, cut off from the world. Then came the camps. Places like Auschwitz became factories of death, where human lives were snuffed out with terrifying efficiency. The result? A staggering 6,258,673 people murdered. That's more than the entire population of Los Angeles. Gone. Just like that. And all because some people decided to follow orders. But here's where our story takes an unexpected turn. After the war, as Nazi leaders stood trial at Nuremberg, many claimed they were just following orders. This defense echoed through courtrooms like a chilling refrain. Enter Stanley Milgram, a Yale psychologist with a burning question: were Germans uniquely obedient, or could anyone be capable of such atrocities? In 1961, Milgram devised an experiment that would make your high school science fair project look like a baking soda volcano. Here's the setup. Volunteers were told they were participating in a study about learning. Little did they know, they were about to become unwitting actors in a drama that would shock the world. The stage was set, a man strapped to an electric chair. Don't worry, he was an actor, a series of switches delivering shocks from 15 to 450 volts, and our unsuspecting volunteer playing the role of teacher. Now, here's where it gets intense. Milgram showed his experiment design to 14 Yale scientists. Their prediction? Only 1% of participants would go all the way to 450 volts. After all, people aren't monsters, right? The rules were simple: ask the learner questions. If he gets them wrong, shock him. Sounds straightforward, right? But as the voltage increased, so did the drama. At 75 volts, the learner grunted in pain. At 120 volts, he shouted that the shocks were unbearable. By 150 volts, he was begging to be released. "Let me out! I have a heart condition," he screamed. And at 300 volts? Silence. Ominous, terrifying silence. The teachers started to sweat. They looked at the experimenter, a nondescript man in a lab coat, for guidance. "The experiment must continue," he said calmly. No threats, no coercion, just a simple instruction. Now, you might be thinking, surely people would stop at this point, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Are you ready for the shocking truth? A mind-boggling 65% of participants cranked that dial all the way up to 450 volts. That's right, 2/3 of ordinary folks were willing to potentially deep-fry a stranger just because a guy in a lab coat said so. And hold on to your hats, because it gets even crazier. Every single participant, 100%, hit the 300-volt mark. That's like saying everyone in your office would be willing to taste the new intern if the boss insisted it was necessary for team building. Now, let that sink in for a moment. These weren't soldiers in a war zone or hardened criminals. These were ordinary people like you and me. Your neighbor, your coworker, maybe even your sweet old grandma could be capable of this. But wait, there's more! This wasn't some one-off fluke. Similar studies in 2009 and 2015 showed people haven't changed much. In fact, the 2015 study in Poland saw 90% of participants hit the max voltage. So, what's the moral of this electrifying tale? Well, it's time for some uncomfortable self-reflection. Have you ever followed an order without questioning it? Maybe it was your boss asking you to fudge some numbers on a report. Or a police officer telling you to move along when you saw something suspicious. Imagine if that person in authority was wearing a crisp suit and sitting behind a mahogany desk. Or if they were in a uniform with a shiny badge. Would you be more likely to obey then? The scary truth is, probably yes. This isn't just about big, dramatic scenarios like war crimes. It's about the small choices we make every day. The times we stay silent when we should speak up. The moments we go along with something we know isn't right, just because someone in charge said so. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you do in Milgram's experiment? Would you flip the switch or flip the bird to the researcher? And hey, speaking of following orders, here's a little experiment of our own. I order you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out our sources in the description. Will you obey? Or will you resist authority and still do it anyway because you love the content? The choice is yours. Remember, folks, the only shock we want you experiencing is the shock of how awesome our next video will be. Until then, stay curious, and for Pete's sake, don't electrocute anyone unless it's your conscience, which should be zapping you every time you blindly follow orders without thinking.